Hi everyone, my name is Tom, that's my colleague Jens. We are both part of the design team here at November 5. And if you're hosting, you talk, so we prepared a talk. And the thing that we'd like to talk to you about today is impact. And as I made this first slide, I had the thought, oh God, it's going to sound like one of those buzzwordy new things, like, oh, the next thing in design should be impact, and we should all be doing it, and et cetera, et cetera. But I can tell you now, for us at least, from our perspective, that's not true. We genuinely feel that this is important, and hopefully by the time that we're done talking, you'll know why it was important, or why to us it's been important in doing the work that we do, in helping our clients reach things, and how it's helped us as designers. But let's start at the beginning. We're all here because we want to help others have awesome experiences, right? If not, this is probably not the time or the place for you. But that's where we all start. That's where we at November 5 start as well. And we all know, and the longer you've been doing this, the more examples you have ready to pull out of your hat of this being true, that there's quite a few obstacles between the ideal world of your Figma file and the reality. And then that's not just the reality of building and releasing things into the wild, but then on top of that, the reality that your customer is in. Because there's all these things that impact them when they experience that thing that you spent all this time creating so meticulously. And the reality is your product is not experienced in a vacuum. There's all these things in the user's context, light conditions, the device they're on, pop-up blockers, I don't know, whether they're in a rush, whether they're on their bicycle or on the move, whether connectivity is limited. All these things impact the way that someone has an experience, and also the way that someone remembers an experience. Other people have talked about this. We're not going to talk about this. We'd like to zoom out even further. Because your product also doesn't exist in a vacuum. The product itself is there. There used to be nothing in its place. And because it's now there, it's a bit philosophical, but bear with me. There's impact there. Things are impacted. People are impacted because your product exists. Those things can be product goals. The product or its goals can change. A business strategy can change because you suddenly arise as a competitor. A revenue model can change because something ends up not working and you need to shift the way that you want to do things. But it's not just about business or clients, it can be people as well. People's lives can be changed, people's income, people's jobs. And this sounds a bit dramatic because in our daily lives we don't always build things that directly impact someone's income, for example. But it is true of the big tech things that have happened, and on a smaller scale, it's true for some of the stuff that we do as well. And what's interesting about this is if you take that into account when you're building things, your perspective changes. For example, a meal delivery app, really stupid everyday thing, because it exists, kitchen staff is impacted, delivery drivers are impacted, HR departments, marketing departments need to change the way they do things. But then on top of that, restaurants' entire strategies may change because suddenly their income depends on these delivery drivers and all the food that's being ordered. Packaging production may change, wages may change, waste management, traffic, all these things. Sometimes it's tiny, sometimes it's huge, but they change because you did what you did or your team did what they did together, because it's never just about you. And this is generally true for quite a lot of the things we do. And the easiest part of impact is the one that you want to have, right? You build a thing or your client briefs you because they want something to change, they want to achieve something, they want to change something. So that's intentional. And you as a designer are part of succeeding in that intention. You want to reach something. And we see intentional impact in numbers. We see it in business cases. We see it when people want to get funding for an idea they have for a startup. And we see it at the end of the road also in award shows when someone, accepts the award and goes, the big percentage on the screen, that's what we did. That was our impact. Yay, well done. And this is true, and I'm sure we all encounter this sometimes. But there's another side to this as well. Sometimes the impact you have with the work you do is unintentional. Sometimes it's beyond what you see when you're building this thing. It can be really hard to predict. Sometimes it doesn't appear until after you're done, until the thing is real and the changes are happening. But what we've learned, and more on this later, is that if you're open to it and you're listening and you're able to learn and you're willing to experiment, then you can roll with that impact and turn something unintentional that may begin as something negative into something positive, something that works better. So, impact. I'm sorry, that's very bright. That was less of a fundamental thing when I was in front of my screen. Disclaimer, this is going to happen a few more times. Sorry. So impact, like experience, can be designed if you take it into account, if you're willing to look for it. And we have 2 stories we'd like to share with you of that happening to us in the past months and years. And the first is with a partner of ours, a company called Huswell, known very well to the people at Skin as well. Huswell is a Belgian company, local. They do hospitality management. So if you have a second home or several second homes, and you want to put this on the rental market, like Airbnb, right? Then Huswell can do that for you. They can unburden you from all the stuff that needs to happen. And that's what they try to do. They try to give their client a steady extra income because you're renting out property, so that makes you a bunch of money, but without all the hassle that comes with it. That's what they're in for, and it's a very interesting proposition because the short-term rental market can be quite challenging. There's so many different things to do. You need to clean things, you need to repair things, you need to market yourself on Airbnb and all the other platforms, manage bookings, manage double bookings, deal with neighbors, deal with emergency services, whatever you can think of, stuff you probably experienced yourself as a guest at some point in a place. That all exists for an owner as well. And that's why Huswell exists, and that's why so many of these owners think, I'm done with all this, let someone else manage it for me, please, because it's too much. So they're in the business of doing this, but of course, if you hand over the keys to your property to a company, the problems don't disappear. They're just handled by someone else. And because Huswell is a company, they want to handle a lot of these because they want a lot of properties. So the same problems and all the diversity that comes with it still happens. It just happens at scale, and the chaos is that much worse for it. Now, when Huswell came to us, the main problem they were dealing with was a lack of trust. Someone gave them their keys, they pay them a bit of money, and then all this managing, all this complexity happens in a sort of dark space where nothing is updated and no one knows anything until it goes wrong, until someone complains or calls, or the neighbor's banging on the door, or something breaks. And so Huswell was always dealing with negative communication, always people that were angry, owners that were understandably upset because it's their life's investment, right? And the door's broken, so you're upset. That makes perfect sense. And they were dealing with all these things, and it was always negative, and there was never any space for a celebration. You know, another month's additional steady income, well done. Never any space for any positive conversation. So we set out to change that. And we did a process that we're all hugely familiar with. We did some research, we did some design, we built an app. It was a mobile app. It was meant for owners, so we could keep them up to date of everything going on. We're not going to go into depth about the process of researching and building, because that's not what this story is about. And what we tried to do with this app was focus on 3 strategic things: trust, reassurance, and unburdening. That's what we were trying to do for these people. Trust we did by giving them an insight into their earnings, by giving them a booking calendar so they could follow up what was happening with their property, when people were in it, when it was empty. We gave them links to all the booking platforms so they could see what their property looked like on the internet as a guest when you're trying to book. Is it appealing or not? Reassurance we put in there through reviews Any reviews that someone puts on the internet are public, so these people deal with negative reviews in a quite intense way because it's their property. We gave them on the left there an insight into a general kind of satisfaction metric. And unburdening we try to do by making them reserve or allowing them to reserve their own stay in their own property, which is important because for an owner, it's my place. I want to live in it if I want to. I don't want to be told no, it's mine. And we allowed them to create a support ticket. Now that last one is the one that I want to zoom in on because that was the most interesting one when it comes to impact. Why? Well, there was intentional impact there because we designed a flow, this is what it looks like, that allowed an owner very easily and transparently to submit a problem. You go into your property and there is a big stain on the wall next to the kitchen. You want to take a picture, you want to send it to someone and say, someone did this, I don't know who, but I want it fixed, please. So we did this. Not a big thing feature-wise, and some great intentional impact because things just became a lot easier for owners to submit support tickets. Big change, intentional impact. However, it's not just about your customer, is it? Because suddenly, if we allow hundreds of owners to submit real easy tickets for everything that they see in their property, up to the tiniest detail that may be missing or moved or wrong or broken, then that creates a wave of problems that needs to be fixed. And if then behind the customer, the business is unable to do this and the employees are not organized to do this, then you've created impact in an imbalanced way because you've solved one party's problems, but you've just increased the other party's problems tenfold. And a customer's experience with you may be a minute of their time. They take a picture, they fill in some information, and that was a very good minute, spent easily and quite nicely, you know, putting in this ticket. So I was angry, but I'm now slightly less angry. The employees, on the other hand, spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week fixing these problems. If the start of their day is chaos, and all the rest of their days are chaos as well, then their experience and the impact that we have on their experience is a lot more negative. And it's fewer people, but it is their entire job that we've just made terrible. So this is a very important piece of impact to look at as well. And we tried to solve this, of course, because it was on our radar, like this is going to have some sort of negative impact. How do we mitigate this? What do we do? And in order to answer that question, we needed to zoom out and ask the question, what does support mean? What does support mean when all the issues that you're dealing with are emotional, when people are always angry? What does support mean when a whole bunch of these problems are actually inherent to the real estate business? Things break, things become old, things need to be replaced and repaired. But somehow your clients, as well as clients, always point to them. It's all your fault because I'm paying you a monthly fee to manage this. So if something breaks, I expect you to always fix it, whatever it is, whoever did it. What does support mean when not only is this your daily reality, but these things come in through different channels, in different inboxes. Some even went straight to the CEO's email address because some owners knew him, had met him somewhere, had written down his email address and just sent their stuff to him, send him pictures of broken doorknobs. And then what does support mean if all that is your reality and you want to scale? You already have this complexity and you want to, you know, increase the amount of properties you manage tenfold. What does support mean when the amount of stuff that incomes your inbox and needs to be fixed by a team tenfold? Is it tenfold or does the impact actually measure up to something more like 20 or 30-fold? How do you do that? Do you hire 20 more support people? That's not sustainable. As a business, you're going to end up having so much employee cost just to fix small problems that from a business perspective, it becomes unsustainable. So the answer is quite complicated, but for them at the time, sorry for the red slide, for them at the time, support meant trying at least to fix everyone's problems all the time. That was part of their proposition. They were like, just send it to us, we'll fix it. The problem with that, of course, was that they couldn't fix it because it was too much. And also they were unable to have a conversation about this. This stuff just came in. And even just trying to answer a single email took, what, a minute out of someone's day? So multiply that by 1,000, and again, it's unsustainable. So they had a problem here, and you need to start thinking about what that needs to become. It can't remain fixing everyone's problems all the time, because you can't do it now. So how are you going to do it if you scale things tenfold? So not everyone's problems. But then if you're not fixing everyone's problems, whose problems do you fix? And whose don't you fix? And how do you deal with the ones that you don't fix? Because you're going to have to deliver some bad news to them. What do you fix first? What do you postpone? What things can you know in advance are going to be easy to fix? What things can you fix 100 a day of? And which other things require specific knowledge? Which things require contractors that aren't available when you snap your fingers? You need to call them and make an appointment, and it's going to take days. How do you translate that into the reality of the owner who wants a fix for their broken doorknob now? So not everyone's problems. Right? You want to go to fixing the ones that you can, the ones that have impact, the right problems. So the process of getting there requires you to think about what's important, what's urgent, what happens so many times that I can automate it. Can I somehow replace a human with something that doesn't require a human? And so we set to work designing a whole bunch of things. None of them happened in Figma. Some of them happened on a piece of paper. Some of them were in Excel sheets, in Miro flows, in whatever you can think of. But none of them were considered, or were what you might consider, a designer's job. But we had to do them anyway to reach the impact that we wanted. We set out to design a channel flow where there's a mobile app, but also you can call. And we went from 3 different phone numbers and 7 different email inboxes to a system that said there's an app. If you really want to call, you can, but you are taken through this tape message that says that if it's not urgent, please use the app. And if you sent an email to the inboxes that you used to send emails to, you got a reply saying, we're no longer accepting tickets here, please use the app. So all of this to turn chaos into intention. We designed a structure, a taxonomy for all of these things to exist in. If you take 1,000 of these complaints, can you structure them somehow? Are there categories and subcategories you can assign them to? If you need to write a single sentence that encapsulates one of these categories, what does that sound like? Is that something that if you say it to an owner, it'll make sense to them? If not, you're not done, you need to keep writing. And then this structure, can we put it in the app so that owners can use it and it makes sense to them, not without thinking, because they're customers, they want their problem fixed, so it needs to work for them. But it also needs to work for the people in the operations teams, the ones that are in front of an ERP system fixing tickets all day. It needs to work for them as well, and you want there to be no translation between one end and the other. You want it to flow from one end to the other without anything in between. So this was actually quite a lengthy design process. We made statuses, we made priority, we made urgency. A block toilet means no rental, means canceling the next 3 appointments, because by the time the plumber gets here, it's 3 days in the future. Maybe your place will have flooded by then. These things are important. So extra urgency for this, extra urgency maybe for other things, based on all these things that as a designer you're not aware of, because you don't know this reality unless you do tons of research and talk to tons of owners, which we didn't have time to do. So you make an educated guess, you work with your team. We made a call tree so that if these owners are mostly 50 plus people, some of them are people that don't want or don't like to use mobile apps. Maybe they still want to pick up the phone. If they do, then let's give them an experience that not only fits the flow that we want them to follow, but that matches in terms of tone of voice. So that no one feels like they're listening to machines and jumping through hoops that don't make sense to a human. We designed automated responses so that if you do submit a ticket, we can tell you not when the fix is going to happen, because maybe we don't know when the fix is going to happen. Maybe it's going to take a plumber and several weeks, and maybe you will lose 2 weeks' income based on this. That's possible. We can't tell you in advance. What we can tell you is that you have a ticket number, and it's going to take us up to 24 hours to look at it. And then when we've looked at it, we can tell you what the next step is going to be. So wherever you are in this flow, you're never in the dark. You may not know when the final step is going to happen, but you always know when the next step is going to happen. And we do this in a way that hopefully sounds human enough for you not to get angry while you're waiting for steps to progress. And this is an operational reality that we learned about from them by talking with them and by hearing them sigh about all this stuff that they deal with on a daily basis. And we can't make them work twice as fast. We can't hire 3 support engineers for every one that they have now. But we can do this and hopefully, manage expectations on a customer side, make them slightly more patient than they would have been initially, and hopefully by the end of it, not too pissed. And so all of these things were quite impactful. None of them happened in Figma. And we learned an awful lot about what it means to support in this complicated business, about automation, and about how it's really valuable to zoom out, not only to zoom out from the customer perspective, but to zoom out and look at the whole thing as a bunch of people trying to reach different goals, needing to do different things in their day. And if you can't speed things up, if you can't make things magically fixed, then you can deliver some value by managing expectations. And the last thing we learned is that measuring this impact, because that is of course where you want to end up. You want to end up with a big number on a slide saying the results were amazing. We don't have any hard results just yet because it's such a complicated process. It's a company that has to restructure to some extent to deal with this change. And measuring this and putting it into a number that's simple enough is going to take some time still. We're not there yet. But the most important thing in terms of this story is that we felt anyway that the most impactful stuff we did wasn't design work. It was other things. And that's it. And I'm going to hand over to Jens.
All right. Not sure how many red slides are still going to pass, but a few. So be ready. All right. So something I truly believe is that designers who do their job don't actually do their job. And what I mean by that is, if you look at what your job as a designer is, for me, it's a problem solver. You're someone who solves problem in a very unique way. A lot of passion for really solving users' problem in a very specific way. But often, if you're only doing what you're told to do, or what's in the job description on LinkedIn that you should do, I often find that it's, one, not very inspiring, or that you don't have the impact that you really want to have. So I want to take you through a story that we did together with a partner of ours, and that partner is Le Pain Quotidien. Who here has been to Le Pain Quotidien? Okay, that's a lot. Good news. We are partners for a few years. We're even so lucky that we can taste the new menu items. We even got to learn a lot about sourdough. There's even a library in Belgium that has like all these starters. So just to say, we've done some projects together. So when something happened to them, it wasn't weird that they came to us in order to help, because we have that partnership ongoing. When their context changed due to Corona, they had to adapt. And one of the big issues they had was there wasn't a lot of very skilled people in the hospitality sector. So restaurants and other companies really had to look for people, because a lot of those people got to find other jobs, got to find other passions to do. On the other hand, customers who then came in back to restaurants, they expected a lot. They wanted to have the best experience that they wanted. So it's very challenging. A solution there might be ordering and paying at the table. That's something probably a lot of you have also been doing a lot. Thanks to Corona, this was introduced. It has also been proven very successful in a lot of other companies, if you look at all the data that they have. So normally we would say, okay, let's design the best order and pay experience that we can have. But that's not what we did. And the reason why we didn't is because we know Le Pain Quotidien. And people who went to Le Pain Quotidien, who also went to McDonald's. No one goes to McDonald's? Okay. Okay. It's a big difference, right? If you walk into a McDonald's or Le Pain Quotidien, you have different expectations. Like that screen, it's something you can expect from going to McDonald's. But if you go to Le Pain Quotidien, it's more personal. You want to feel that connection. That's why you go to Le Pain Quotidien and don't go to something else. So it's a very unique context that we have. So what we really wanted to learn is how can we make this successful in the unique context that we currently have. It's not about the customer experience only. And what we saw was, because we went often to Le Pain Quotidien, the employees working there, they do so much about the experience. It's of course about the food, but coming there, I think every one of you knows if you go to a restaurant, you have a good or a bad waiter, the impact it has on your experience and how you remember it, it's crazy impactful. So we really knew, okay, these people, we have to take them into account because they have to tell the clients, there's a new way that you can order. If there's something wrong with the system, they should be able to help. They should stand behind the vision that we're trying to do. So how we wanted to start learning is by leveraging an existing solution. So we didn't start by designing everything ourselves because we really believed that the problems to solve aren't the ones customer facing. The problems that we believe that would actually have an impact, they're the ones focused on the employee, focused on the other things. It's not the customer. We already have that covered. Because we didn't spend time designing that customer-facing solution, it meant time that we had for solving other things. And other things are, for example, helping to onboard the employees. How do you tell that story? You should tell them a lot, why are we doing this? What are we trying to reach? A lot of employees might think, oh, you're trying to steal our jobs, we're going to get fired. No, we really want to focus on you being able to do more. We don't want you to spend time just passing on orders. No, your value is when people enter to make them feel at home, to set them seated, to tell the specials of today, to show your expertise. That's where the value of the employees really shine. And that's what we want them to do more. So telling that story is key. We also did it by the onboarding steps of service that Le Pain Quotidien uses. We also redesigned them to include the new steps, how they should do it, because we want to know and help the people that are used to specific steps. In that specific format, we wanted to show them, okay, how will this new tool or new experience will fit that in your steps of service. We also went mystery shopping because we can say, hey, you should do these steps, but the reality is often something else. We also started by asking customers, hey, you just ordered, how easy was it for you? Because previously we said, we've got it covered, we want to make sure that we actually have it covered. So we asked every customer after they completed their order, how was your experience? If it wasn't good, what can we do in order to improve it? So we really wanted to listen and actually validate everything. But maybe even more important was our employee satisfaction survey. So we started to roll out an employee survey every week. Every week we wanted to ask, how happy are you with the product? How can we improve it? How can we make it better? Because they have to use it every day. They are key to make a success. We also created dashboards, but that also meant like exporting CSVs, Excel, all the fun stuff. But by doing this, we really made it front and center what, on the one hand, customers are saying, but on the other hand, what are your employees saying? What are the real issues? We didn't really focus on those business metrics. These were the ones that actually drove all the decisions we did during the project. We even started designing some internal communications, not to put on Slack or something, but we knew, okay, when the employees are working, they all have this WhatsApp group. Okay, let's just make images, send them in the WhatsApp group and share them. Because again, we want to know that they know why we are doing this. We also want to update them. How is it going? What are we seeing? What are the next actions that we're going to do? What are the things that we learned from you, and how are we going to take those learnings and apply them? So, after the first weeks, we failed. That's something that some people might say, but actually, we really believe that we learned. Because after those few weeks, because of all that feedback that we were able to gather, we learned a lot. And we really believe if you're learning, then failing is winning for us. Without failing, you don't learn anything. So, what we learned, we had a lot of happy customers, so the solution was pretty well. Everyone saying, hey, perfect, I can easily order, I don't have to wait too long. That was good. The employees, on the other hand, weren't so happy, the first ones. But we really listened to their feedback. They were also very open. We also made everything anonymous, so they didn't have to be scared to getting fired or something. But we really learned a lot. And the things we learned was that every store is a separate company. So we cannot just roll something out in every company. It's all different. Every manager is different. People may be working there for 1 year, for 10 years. It's such a different context. But it's that context that we need to take into account in order to be successful. It's also location, location, location. So really, depending on where we are going to do this, we will have a different plan that we have to roll out. From the first time that we rolled it out, we really learned that the terrace is actually a very difficult area for the waiters. It's outside, it's not that visible, so that was a real problem that they had. In order to have some visibility, also people often, on the restaurant, if they sat on the terrace, they would order and they wouldn't pay. So they missed revenue, and that was an important metric for every restaurant to take into account. So that was a huge opportunity for us to, if they order and pay at the table on the terrace, we have 2 problems solved. What we also saw was that specifically during peak times, when it was super busy, that was when the order and pay at the table was a real help. Then there's only so many waiters that they could have, so if it was full, the OPAT system really helped out in order for everyone to have that experience that they expected when they walked in. So what was success for us? After, I think we rolled out in 4 or 5 restaurants after that, and finally we really saw that employees are starting to use it as their advantage, starting to use it to free up time to spend more specifically on really helping people, to really show that Le Pain Quotidien experience and share that with everyone. Those peak moments, they didn't result in longer waiting times. Those longer waiting times were one of the top comments that we saw on Google Review when people had a complaint. We saw that those waiting times didn't increase anymore with the peak moments. And we also saw that those customers actually had an experience matching with their expectations. So, looking back, if we would have just designed the customer experience, we don't believe that it would have mattered, because no one would have used it. The employees would have turned against it. It wouldn't be rolled out. It wouldn't have been a success. So all that work would have been thrown in the garbage. So to summarize, what does design for impact mean for us? And it's a very personal vision. But for us, it's really to broaden your perspective and to define your own canvas. And what we mean with that is you often get problems that are thrown to you, often with a solution attached to it. Often we have questions. Is it the right problem we're solving? Is it the right solution that you're suggesting to solve? And by just sitting there and not doing it, you won't have an impact. But by really broadening your perspective, doing things that might not be in your job description, you can really define your own canvas and you can really have an impact. For me personal, that's the most fun to, with every project, learn something new, really have an impact and move forward. So that's something I really, really, really believe in. Anything to add, Tom? All right. So a big red slide at the end. Thank you for your attention and your time. If you have any questions still, we'd be happy to answer those.
Thanks. Thanks so much, guys. I always love talks that really dig into the things behind the scenes and all of the work and effort that goes into experience that you don't see in an interface. So appreciate that very much. We don't have time for Q&A right now, but fortunately we have a break. So if you do have questions for these two, you can ask them during the break. Otherwise, we'll see you back in about 15 minutes for our second talk about AI. Thanks.